All right, guys, there's something happening right now that you definitely don't want to miss. The F-16s Wild Weasels are moving from Japan to Diego Garcia. Now, if you're not familiar, Wild Weasels are the fighter jets we send in to knock out enemy air defense systems. These F-16s are going to cut off the enemy's air defense capabilities, take out their surface-to-air missile sites, and really level the playing field. But here's the thing, this isn't just a small move to position forces toward Iran. No, this is way bigger. We're talking about a powerful, strategic asset being pulled from the Pacific and moved to the Middle East. It's not just about moving troops. This is part of a larger strategy that's really setting the stage for something bigger. Now, these F-16 Wild Weasels and the F-22 Raptors, these are key assets the U.S. needs before we seriously move forward with any kind of military operation against Iran. And right now, they're on the move. You can see the buildup that's been happening for a while now. It's starting to look a lot like Operation Midnight Hammer. But listen closely. We can't just call this Midnight Hammer 2. This isn't some short-term strike. This time, we're talking about something bigger, a long-term operation that's going to require stamina. And when you look at the F-16 Wild Weasels, we're not just talking about a couple of jets. These are Block 50 and Block 52 F-16s, and they're made to eliminate enemy air defenses. We're talking about around 30 F-16s already in the region or on their way. That's way more than what we saw in Operation Midnight Hammer. And that's just the beginning. Yeah, we might see even more F-16s coming into the region soon. Every single one of these planes plays a massive role in the strategy, and it's not even close to what we've seen before. This is seriously changing the game in the Middle East. Now, let's talk about someone really important in all of this, General Dan Kaine, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. He's been a big advocate for military operations, especially in places like Venezuela. But when it comes to Iran, he's much more cautious. And it's clear why. We all know this could easily turn into a long, drawn-out conflict with huge risks, especially for American troops. This isn't going to be a quick and easy fight. The president made it pretty clear, if we don't get a deal with Iran on the nuclear issue in the next 10 days, the U.S. military is going to act. But the report from Axios says that General Kaine has been a lot more cautious when it comes to Iran, and that makes sense. The stakes are way higher here, and Iran could drag us into a conflict that lasts a lot longer than anyone expects, with a lot more American casualties. This whole situation gets even more complicated when we look at President Trump's response. He's pushing back on the report, saying it's 100% incorrect. Trump says that, like everyone else, General Kaine doesn't want war. But if it comes down to it, he thinks a war with Iran would be a quick victory for the U.S. So, what do you think? Do you believe it'll be as easy as the president says? I'm not so sure. But I do believe the military planners, especially General Kaine, know this isn't going to be an easy fight. It's going to have long-lasting consequences. Let's compare it to Venezuela for a second. Militarily, Venezuela isn't exactly a powerhouse. If you take away all the politics, the U.S. intervention there could have been a quick operation. But Iran? That's a whole different story. Iran has big allies like Russia and China, and those countries are not just going to sit on the sidelines if we go to war with Iran. That's going to create major challenges for the U.S. military. And here's something else we can't ignore. There are reports saying China might help Iran out by providing them with supersonic anti-ship missiles. This is a real threat. These missiles, the CCM-302, can travel at Mach 2.5 to Mach 3. And they're not just regular missiles. They're fast and can carry a payload of 200 to 240 kilograms. If Iran gets these, they could use them to attack U.S. Navy ships or military bases in the region, and that would be a major problem. Think about it. If Iran gets its hands on these missiles, they could launch attacks without worrying too much about being intercepted. These missiles have active radar, which means they can find their target on their own once they're in the air. This is a serious game changer for the U.S. military. So, these CCM-302 missiles might look big, but the real issue is how hard they are to intercept. Iran's tested some shorter-range anti-ship missiles before, and they've been claiming they have hypersonic missiles, though they usually fall just below the true hypersonic threshold. But you can't deny, these weapons are still a major threat. If you want to see what could happen when a smaller country like Iran decides to use weapons like this, just look at what's happening in Ukraine right now. Big powers are involved, and they all have their own interests at play in this fight. And here's what I keep thinking. When you poke the hornet's nest, you might kill a few of the hornets with your spray. But you know what? One or two are still going to get through and come after you. If Iran pulls the trigger and uses these weapons, that's going to cause serious problems. It's not just a military challenge, it's a strategic one. You'll be dealing with how to defend and retaliate at the same time. And let's not forget, Iran isn't some isolated country here. They're backed into a corner, and when that happens, they're going to pull out all the stops to protect their regime. If you think a military strike is just going to force Iran to surrender quickly, you're wrong. This isn't just a typical military battle, it's a fight for survival. Iran will use every strategy at its disposal to hold on to power. When a country is pushed into a corner like that, it becomes a battle for survival. If I'm Iran, I'm not hesitating to go after U.S. military bases, Navy ships, whatever I can target. Things could spiral out of control real fast, and that's the real risk here. The U.S. would be facing a complex situation, one that's not just about military strength, but also about long-term stability in the region. When it comes to preparing for a prolonged war, you need to understand this isn't going to be a simple fight. This is going to be a long-term strategy. What we're seeing unfold right now can't be compared to the Operation Iraqi Freedom campaigns. This will take serious stamina. And even with the USS Gerald Ford in the region, one aircraft carrier can't support a long campaign. The Ford is powerful, but it's not enough to sustain a fight for weeks or even months. The U.S. needs more than that. More carriers, more planes, more soldiers, everything we need to keep this operation going for the long haul. Because if you look at Iraq or any previous conflicts, we know that without long-term sustainment, any victory will be short-lived. You can't just win one battle and call it a day. You need the ability to keep winning over time. Looking at the situation now, it's clear that the U.S. can't afford to let up when it comes to preparing for a long-term military campaign. Sure, we've seen a huge buildup of forces, but without enough sustainment, everything could collapse quickly. Having carriers is important, but if you only have one, you're going to run into problems when it comes to keeping those forces supplied. Now, imagine the worst-case scenario. What if Iran decides not just to defend, but actually launch an attack on U.S. military bases, Navy ships, and key military infrastructure? If that happens, the U.S. will be facing a complex, drawn-out conflict. This isn't just speculation, it's a real possibility, and we need to be ready for it. From what we're seeing with the buildup and increased forces in the Middle East, it's clear that dealing with Iran is not going to be simple. This isn't like past operations. Iran isn't just working with Russia and China, they're developing advanced weapons that could change the entire dynamic of the battle. From hypersonic missiles to unconventional tactics, it's only going to make the situation more complicated. And here's the final thing I want to highlight. When dealing with Iran, nothing is certain. Strategies can change quickly, and in situations like this, you can't just rely on military calculations alone. A lot of factors, from international politics to backdoor deals, can shift the outcome in unexpected ways. With all these factors in play, the most important thing is that the U.S. stays ready to fight. Because if we don't, this war could not only last longer but also lead to unforeseen consequences. To maintain stability in the region and protect national interests, the U.S. has to be prepared not just in terms of military strength but also strategically and diplomatically. That's why every step the U.S. takes in the Middle East has to be carefully calculated. What's happening in that region could define a lot about our future. If the U.S. doesn't prepare thoroughly and maintain control of the situation, we could find ourselves in a long and costly conflict, one that costs us both lives and money. Like I said, this isn't going to be a simple war. If you think a few military units can solve the problem, you're wrong. This is much bigger than that, and every step needs to be planned carefully. Every move has to be calculated precisely. If you want to keep track of all of this, leave a comment below. I'll keep updating you with the latest news and breakdowns as this situation unfolds. So, here's what's going on. F-16s Wild Weasels are on the move from Japan to Diego Garcia. And if you're not familiar with them, Wild Weasels are the planes we send in to take down enemy air defenses. They disrupt, jam, destroy, and hit those surface-to-air missile sites. But this is huge. We're talking about a Pacific asset, one of our top-tier airframes, getting pulled out of the Western Pacific and headed toward the Middle East. And trust me, it's more than just shifting a chess piece, it's part of a bigger move in the game. Now, this isn't some small-time change. F-16s and F-22 Raptors are heading to the Middle East, and those two planes, they're non-negotiable. I've been telling you for months, before any real military operation kicks off with Iran, these planes need to be in play. And guess what? They're moving. I've been tracking this buildup for a while, and this looks like Operation Midnight Hammer all over again. But here's the thing, it's not just another round of that operation. It's something bigger. This isn't Midnight Hammer 2, like some people are calling it. Nah, it's going to be a much longer, sustained operation. We're not talking a quick strike. We're talking about a full-on campaign. The Wild Weasel F-16s, especially the Block 50 and Block 52 models, are going to play a big role in this. And we're talking about 30 of them already in the region or on their way. This is a much bigger deal than what we saw before. Trust me, there could be more coming, and it's just the beginning. And it's not just the planes. Let's talk about General Dan Kaine, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. He's someone who's been in the middle of a lot of these decisions, and what's being said about him? Well, the stakes are high, and he knows it. The president's already said if a deal with Iran isn't made in the next 10 days, military action is on the table. But the truth is, General Kaine's been more cautious when it comes to Iran. He sees the bigger picture. This isn't just another quick military operation. A sustained war with Iran could drag on for a lot longer, with more risks, more casualties. The stakes would be massive. And President Trump, of course, hit back, calling reports about Kaine 100% incorrect. He says General Kaine, like the rest of us, doesn't want war. But if it comes down to it, Trump says, it'll be quick and easy for the U.S. to win. But let's be real. No one knows what's going to happen. We can only guess what kind of moves are being planned. But I'm betting that General Kaine knows just how long and drawn out this could get. And comparing Iran to Venezuela, it's like comparing apples and oranges. Venezuela's military might be weak compared to Iran, and that makes a huge difference. Iran is a different beast, with allies like Russia and China, which makes things even more complicated. Look, if China and Russia decide to back up Iran, it changes the entire situation. It's one thing to go up against a small country. It's another to take on two global superpowers at the same time. And now we've got reports that Iran is looking at buying supersonic anti-ship missiles from China. These missiles, the CCM-302, can reach speeds of Mach 2.5 to Mach 3. They pack a punch, 200 to 240 kilograms of explosive payload. That's not something you can easily shoot down. If Iran gets these missiles, it changes the game for U.S. ships in the region. These missiles are guided by radar, so once they're in the air, they can track targets on their own. The point is, this is a serious threat. Iran has already been testing out shorter-range missiles, and they've been pushing claims of hypersonic technology, though that's still up for debate. But even without the hypersonic speed, these are real, powerful weapons. And here's the deal. If I'm Iran, and the situation escalates to the point of war, I've got nothing left to lose. I'm going all in. I'm using every weapon at my disposal because, for me, this is a matter of survival. I'll be aiming at U.S. Navy ships, military bases, and Air Force installations. If I can hit any of those, that's a win in my book. So yeah, the stakes are real and the risks are high. But don't let anyone tell you this is going to be a quick, easy win. We're seeing a major buildup of forces in the region right now. And while the USS Gerald Ford is already in the area, one carrier isn't going to be enough for a long-term operation. If we're talking about weeks or months of fighting, we need more carriers, more planes, more resources. Sustaining operations over that length of time is no small feat. We've seen this before. If you don't have the staying power, you're going to lose. And if we're really looking at a sustained military campaign against Iran, we need to be ready for a long fight. The stakes here are huge, not just for the U.S., but for the entire region. But here's the kicker. If we go up against Iran, and possibly Russia and China, things can escalate quickly. We're talking about a situation that could spiral into something much bigger. You could see this turning into a full-scale regional conflict, and from there, who knows where it leads. This could turn into something no one wants to see, a global conflict, and that's why we have to be smart about this. Yes, we need to prepare our military, but we also need to think about the diplomatic side of things. We can't just rely on brute force. If we're going to fight this, we need to make sure we've got the right allies, the right resources, and the right strategy in place. Because if we don't, the consequences could be catastrophic. Now, the one thing we know for sure is that Iran isn't just going to sit back and wait for us to strike. They're going to throw everything they've got into this fight, and if they feel cornered, they'll use whatever weapons they have, no matter what it takes. That's why it's so important for the U.S. to maintain its alliances, to make sure our partners in the region are on board. Without those alliances, we're fighting an uphill battle. This isn't just about sending troops into battle. It's about maintaining a long-term strategy. It's about making sure we can sustain a conflict if it goes on longer than expected. And that's going to take not just military strength, but diplomatic strength as well. The U.S. needs to keep its relationships with its allies strong, so that when the time comes, we're not alone in this. Ultimately, this is a dangerous game we're playing, If we don't handle this carefully, it could end up being far worse than anyone imagined. It could lead to a conflict that drags on for years, with consequences for the entire world. But if we play our cards right, with the right military power, the right allies, and the right strategy, we might be able to avoid that worst-case scenario. But that's not a guarantee. It's all about making the right moves at the right time. So, if you're following along, keep an eye on how this all develops. If you want to hear more about this situation and stay updated, leave a comment below and let me know your thoughts. If you like the content, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll keep bringing you updates on this and more. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.